Hi friends, welcome to my studio. I look forward to doing this project together. I'm going to be drawing this little cat. This was my sister's cat, Fergie. Fergie had to be put down, and right after my sister ended up in the hospital, so I'm doing this for her. I don't have a clear picture of her cat, but one that she had sent over the phone, and so I've enlarged that. It's not a very good reference photo, but it should be enough for me to fill in a lot of the gaps and just kind of create something a little special for her. So I'm using this background because I know that the cat is a gray tabby with a little bit of tan in there, but I thought because she's a little female, put some pink in. The blue and purple will be complementary to the coloration on the cat. And the cat's collar has some different colors in it, like the pink and purple and kind of a teal. So it should all kind of work together. Over on the right-hand side, I noticed part of the paper had been damaged. I don't know how or why. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna create a bokeh background to utilize that. So at first I'm thinking, oh gosh, should I start over? I didn't know what to do, but I really kind of like the way that that effect is helping out with this background. So sometimes something happens that is a mistake and you make it into what was called, a happy mistake? So that's what we're doing, and I'm filling in the ears now. You'll notice when I did the background, it did encroach over the original sketch that I did. So I want to make sure that I get a lot of that laid out again here for you. I apologize, my hair is long. I very rarely wear it down, and it keeps flipping into the view. On some of these clips, I'll just crop it out. I may have to do that now. But if you see it, I apologize. Okay, getting into some of this underpainting on the actual cat. There's a lot of striping, a lot of detail that I want to capture. So I'm just going in right now with a gray pencil, one of the Pitt Pastels. Actually, I'm using a Kalour. I didn't even realize that at this point. I can tell by the end of it being a little bit wider where the color is indicated on the pencil. But these, I have a lot of grays in that Kalour brand, so I use it quite frequently. But that's what I'm doing, is just kind of giving myself some guidelines for those initial stripes. Also going in at the eye and kind of making sure that I have that pretty well mapped out, so it's not going to be something that I'm going to end up accidentally going over. Okay, I'm just darkening some of these areas with the stripes to reinforce that when I start going in, adding some more color, and on the tail, getting some of that mapped out there as well. A lot of darkness there, a lot more brown. There's some blue reflection taking place in that area. So I want to capture that, getting this kind of a pinkish undercoat in these areas where there's going to be the light reflecting from the area that has the bokeh effect going. Okay, just kind of getting some more of that color on that side of the cat. I'm going to be making a lot of adjustments with this one, but I want to make sure that the highlighted areas are kind of indicated by using that little bit of a pink in that undercoat. We're working with the underpainting now to get that all again mapped out where the lights and darks are, and you know, like I said, because of the background coming over into my sketch, which is better than the opposite. So it's better to have it coming into your sketch than for you to have to try to fill it in afterwards on the edges, because it'll become pretty obvious, I think. But again, with this particular cat, I'm really trying to work by memory, figure out what this kind of a tabby, how the markings and colorings would be, getting those colors in the back a little darker than they are in the front, making sure I leave areas that need to be like just there around the bell, and just really kind of mapping it all out still. And then I'll be blending all of that so that I can get a nice smooth foundation to go in with that next layer. The shadowing here by the legs, and then remembering that this portion over here, it's facing more of the dark, but really just going in again and figuring out where I need darkness, where I need light, the gray and the brown, trying to keep that coloration balanced. There's some of that blue that's going to come in, that's going to be kind of working as a little reflective area, and some purple as well to pick up that glow from the background. And there's my soft tool blending to make sure that every layer should be blended out. And if you're working in thin layers, you won't have to worry so much about smearing your lines, because they will be thin enough anyway. And going in now with the collar, took me a minute to figure out what colors would be in there based on the two photographs that I had, but I finally was able to look closely enough to see some of that detail, thankfully. So, and the colors of the background kind of stem from that, where it's got the purples and the pinks, and then the little bell is actually purple as well. So while we're adding in these colors, I can go now onto the mouth again. I'm kind of skipping around a lot, but that's because this is different than most of my portraits, where it's not as structured in the direction of my process, and not just all at the top or all at the bottom or whatever. I'm having to go, as I go along, I'm having to really kind of decipher what I can make out from this reference photo that really does not have a lot of the detail that I would normally hope for when using something as a reference photo. Darkening a little bit here, just trying to really kind of focus on those areas that are structural. So if it's dark because of shadow versus being dark because of the actual pattern of the fur. I don't know why my camera keeps going out of focus, and I apologize. I've got all kinds of stuff going on with this one between my hair and my camera, but I appreciate you sticking with me. So darkening around the nose, getting the nostril area, putting a tiny little pink. It's very subtle on the nose, and then blending out this area as well. There's always a lot of blending, and sometimes, I have to just, with this one, keep going in and really, really, really looking and trying to figure out, is that a shadow? Is that part of the hair, because I've essentially changed the lighting altogether. It's going to be really important for me to really study that reference photo, and then remember, for the lighting, how it's going to hit, where it's going to hit. A lot of choices to be made here, but we're moving along. Good time if you like watching my videos, to hit subscribe, give me a like, and that's going to help promote my channel, so I'll be creating more. And if you want to be alerted, you would just have to hit that bell, and that will provide you with an alert when I've uploaded new material. You'll note I have quite a collection of pencils over there. And the funny thing is, that's not all of them. But that's what it takes, especially when you're working with animals, with fur. with different lightings, depending on the characteristics of the pattern on the creature that you're working with. There's always going to be multiple colors that come through in fur. If you think about each little hair getting part of it lit, part of it shaded, and then whatever the light source is, if there's color, that's going to be reflected on some areas. So you really, when you think of brown, you're not really thinking of brown. You've got to think about the different qualities of brown. Is it cool? Is it warm? Is it, more of a tan or an orange? It's just something that you have to learn to look for when you are planning out your project. That's the first thing I do, is I really study and pull out just what I need, and then as I go along, very often I'll have to pull something else out. So I wait till after my project is done to capture all of the pencils I have used, so I can make sure and get those in the description for you. All right, getting some more lights in there, some more soft beige, blending out, always blending. And you'll know when it's, you don't want to do too much in some areas, because when you're working in the final phase and you've got those nice little hairs that are being identified and contributing to the overall feel of the fur, you don't want to blend those out. So sometimes I'll use my finger. It just depends on where I am in that project. Yeah, remembered under the chin and getting that shading down there, on the cheek, a little brown. I do like the little light markings on her face. I'm trying to make sure I don't lose those, and the edges on some of the fur. So I'm still going in with these different colors, and I'm glad I have it sped up for you so you don't have to watch every single stroke of that hair. But you'll see the importance of it, and that's the important thing. If you're a beginner artist and you're interested in starting your career of being a full-time artist, or even just having it as a very serious hobby, that's how a lot of people start off with it, and then they find that there's just so much joy in creating this way. I can recommend some of the materials that I use in particular that I've found really are my favorites. With the pencils, for example, the Pitt Pastel by Faber-Castell, and the Stabile CarbOthellos for the pencils, and I really like those. They're a little bit softer, so when you're laying the color down, the pigment is rich, but it goes on, just so easily with most of the colors. And plus, I think I ended up buying a 48 tin of the Stabile CarbOthellos, and I really like those because of the fact that I've got all of those different, there's a bunch of greens, a bunch of pinks and purples, and a lot of colors that I didn't have with my Pitt Pastel. I also love working with the pan pastels. I haven't been able to for the last couple of projects because of the background requiring so many different areas of color. It just made more sense for me to use the pastel sticks. But otherwise, if I was to do a solid background or a background just with an area of a light, then I would use the Pitt pastels. No, I'm sorry, the pan pastels. They're like in a little plastic container, like you would get foundation or blush or something like that, a makeup that's compressed. The pan pastel, that's exactly what it is. It's the pastel pigment in the binders and all, but they are compressed into that form so that you can use them with those soft tools. And the tools I'm referring to, you saw me just a second ago, it's the blue stick that has a little sponge on the end. The sticks are called, it's not really a stick, it's called a palette knife, and you have a little sponge that goes on the end of that, and they're interchangeable, and you can use those. I use those particularly with the pan pastels to lay that down, because you can get a background put in much quicker that way. And with the pan pastels, the other thing is you can mix those just like you would any other kind of paint. So that makes them also easy and, something that for a specific purpose, for me, that's where that comes into play. All right, I'm just going in again, constantly adjusting the colors, making sure the stripes are in there. Where there's big gaps, I'm looking at the reference photo again and making sure that I can find those areas that are more subtle but have the coloration between the stripes, and blending again, blending. And I did want to keep that kind of pinkish purpley kind of a glaze over the fur on that side of Fergie. But really want to bring out the stripes. Sometimes it's with this type of a cat. For me, it's just a matter of I get started, I map them out, then as I go and I start adding more color and more layers and thin layers, as I start adding those thinner layers, I can see where I need to darken, where I need to go lighter, but they're mapped out, so it makes it really easier to kind of go in and just put them darker where they need to be darker, and find those gaps where I might have missed something. It's a process. It's a very relaxing and soothing process, and I truly enjoy it, and I hope you do too. I hope you'll leave me a comment. Let me know where you are with your art journey, what types of mediums you work with, and where your interests lie. What type of artwork do you like to do? Is it architectural? Is it landscape or pets or some wildlife? Do you like to work in watercolor, oils, whatever it is? I'd love to hear your story. And if you have any questions related to any of the materials that I've used, anything like that, I'll be happy to check and respond to it as I can. Also, I would like to remind you, if you're enjoying watching my tutorials, to make sure to subscribe and hit the like button so I can keep my content out there and get it shared so that others are able to benefit from it as well. All right, let's stop here for a sec. My alarm clock was going off, and by alarm clock I mean two little dogs that were reminding me that it was feeding time. They let me know. But anyway, our pets are our family too, and I know that it was so hard for my sister to lose this one. She had her for 14 years and very special to her, so it means a lot for me to be able to do this. So you can see I'm going in with the different colors again and blurring out. This particular project was a little different than most for me because of, the fact that I was wanting to do it not necessarily too quickly, but from a lot of it from memory and without having that very detailed reference photo. So it's a lot of adjusting. But sometimes that's the way it goes. You have to be willing to, sometimes, in special occasions, I wouldn't do it for a commission, because you can get yourself into all kinds of a mess if you're trying to do a commission and the person who is asking you to do their animals does not have a good picture to start with. Because if you're not familiar with the animal, it's really difficult to convey that personality, the character, and all of the nuances in its fur or hair, and it's harder. So this one, for me, it's very important to me, so I am going to be adjusting a lot, trying to make sure the coloration's the way I want it. The photo that I do have, the background was not necessarily something I would have included in. It's just a casual at home, kind of a photograph, but it, as far as the way it was, I don't know, what's the word for that? I'll think of it in a second. The placement and everything wasn't in the best spot for a background. So I wanted to make sure that I was able to create a different type of a background like I did here. So that requires that I make adjustments for the lighting and all of that. But anyway, so you see here on the tail where I was talking about there's some different color kind of going on there. It's just kind of getting it to where I feel comfortable with it, that it doesn't, have anything very unusual that's going to draw the eye. I want the eye to be really focused on the face of the cat. And yet there is enough detail, because it's the closest to us, we want to make sure that we have a little bit more focus as far as the detail goes. All right, let's see here. We're getting some darker areas put back in. There's that shading that's taking place right there between the leg and the tail. And some hairs, and we want to make sure that we're getting the hair strokes themselves. You can, anytime you're watching a YouTube video, you do have the ability to slow it down or to speed it up. So you would just, if you're on your phone, just tap on the video. You should be able to adjust the speed. There will be a control there. I think it's the little gear. If you're on the TV, of course, you can speed that up as well if you need to. I can't remember how you would do that on the TV, but I'm pretty sure there's that capability. So if it's too fast, then you can slow it down. Sometimes it makes it easy, especially if you want to follow along. You really want to be able to do that. You can pause, you can, stop it, walk away for a while if you need to. Go feed your dogs if you need to, whatever it is. All right, going back onto the face, and again going in with some of the other details I may have noticed, where there was more white compared to the striping, just little details that I'm trying to make sure I capture. And we are nearing that point. Adding some brown and in the shadow. There I am with the purple, a kind of purpley pink, making sure that comes through on the fur as a reflected surface. So sometimes that's what it takes to make something look natural in its environment. And a little bit more white I will be adding in once I get this in. I think I noticed an area to the left of the bottom of the cheek that will be a little darker, and adding again adjustments, some little whiskers, and there we go, some whisker dots. What do we call those? Whisker dots? Yeah. And I'm going to, I just wanted to make the mouth area, the chin, a little bit darker than the cheek, just for that. And I put a little bit of a shadow at the bottom. so the cat's not floating in air. But the shadow kind of helps to ground it. So it doesn't have to be there with this type of a background, but I really just felt like I wanted to put that there. All right, last blendings and getting the little bell. The bell took me a minute to figure out what it was, and then I remembered, and I see just a little bit of a highlight, so using purple, it's a purple bell. So it's got a bit of a gray highlight, and then there's probably a little bit of a white. And then usually the last thing I'll do too is update the eyes. So if there's any chalk that's maybe been blown across the page or something, if I'm not working on my easel, there's always that possibility. But that's the final step, and we are at the end. This is our final product after our tape was removed. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm glad you were able to join me.